Sarah, welcome. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming all the way.
It's an honor.
Such a great idea.
Thank you.
Helen said that it took a few years, but you finally got over to Kenya and you drilled that first well. What year was that, 2010?
That was, yeah, January 2010.
So how did that feel?
It felt amazing. I do remember traveling over there for the first time and feeling terrified and wondering what I was doing.
Because it was such a different universe that you weren't used to. And
it was a different universe. It was a huge leap.
Yeah.
Admittedly now, we really didn't know what we were doing. We figured that out, but it was thrilling and it was confusing. But being on the ground during that first project did change my soul and changed the course of my life.
Yeah. And so once you had that success, you knew that you could do more. Did you enlist others to help, or what did you do?
I did, and I say all the time, my only real skill is that I can find amazing people that are brilliant and can do amazing things. So I realized on that first drill site that, we had gotten lucky, and I needed to figure out how to, if I wanted to continue doing this work, how we were going to do it properly. And also, I realized the incredible impact that we could have with something so basic like clean water.
Yeah. And I would caution you against saying your only real skill is finding good people. You did actually graduate from law school, and you became a civil engineer, and you've got some other skills.
And actually, I was a securities lawyer. I worked in finance.
There you go. I was
school.
Yeah. But you needed to find more meaning than all of that stuff.
I did.
So here you are. You're looking for an opportunity to drill more wells and not just have it be sort of a random good fortune. But you wanted to put a team together that would actually increase the odds of your success. And this sounds expensive. How are you paying for all this stuff?
That's a funny story. My parents thought I'd lost my mind, but in the beginning, I obviously was not getting paid, and I sold my house to support myself in the nonprofit in the early days, and then ended up selling my car. It was a BMW. It was really nice. But it was right, and it wasn't sad for me. It was,
wild.
Yeah.
You're so passionate. And so obviously you're committed, and you found good people.
Great people.
And things are going well, right?
Pun intended.
Yeah.
Yeah. Things are going really, really well. Yeah, and we did, because early on, I knew that I needed to put together this team of hydrogeologists and engineers, these technical people who could help figure out why all of these water projects in Africa were failing and how we could do it better.
Yeah.
So we have increased our project capacity every year.
Yeah. And so you still drill wells, and you recognize that in many cases are there these wells that weren't successful.
Yeah.
Were you able to, in some ways or in some circumstances, resurrect those or fix those in some way?
It is sometimes possible, and I'm in the weeds in this industry, but we think it's a tragedy that there's so much of this work that's done that doesn't end up lasting for the people it's supposed to serve. So we launched our own study in 2014 and evaluated over 200 different broken water wells in Kenya, and determined that the number one reason for water project failure was a lack of technical expertise and or oversight, and then a very close number two reason for failure was a lack of true community engagement and involvement.
So there's some mechanical things involved. You've got to maintain the pumps. You've got to make sure that these things are cleaned. And by community involvement, that just makes sure that they have some skin in the game, that the community has some sense of ownership.
Yeah, absolutely. And, ownership is a big word. It really starts with honest partnership.
Yeah.
And I've been sitting in the bush in East Africa for 10 hours at a time having tea and just asking questions, because you really want to get to know the community to understand what their ideas about development are. And then the technical team at the same time is working on figuring out where the aquifer is recharging and what is, geographically most realistic. So all of that work goes into the project before it's ever installed.
I'm just, for those of you who are listening on the radio, Sarah is I would describe you as a petite blonde or something like that.
Thank you. I think.
But in any event, not a typical site in a rural village in Kenya, I suspect.
Is true.
So what's it like for you? What are these villages like when you walk in? What's the scene like? How do you begin a conversation?
I got to tell you, even on my first trip, I felt just really at home there, and I feel too that I can get some things done where other people find a lot of friction. I cannot explain it. I'm effective in that area and other areas too in these developing regions, and I'm glad for that.
Yeah. And so you listen, you go into the villages, you listen, you engage, you try to find out what their needs are and what their sense of what would make their lives better.
Yeah, I think that, it's a Western notion that we are supposed to be ambassadors of our beliefs and ideas and solutions over there. But what we do is we become ambassadors of their plans for development and desires here, and then raise the funds accordingly. It's important.
Cool. That's pretty cool. What's your success rate with your wells so far?
In an industry that is only about 40% of the water wells installed in Africa are still functioning a year later, and we have maintained a 100% success rate.
Holy smokes.
10 years, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wild.
We worked pretty hard to do that.
Wild. So, and I bet a bunch of that comes from your engagement with the community.
So much of it has to do with the engagement with the community and the respect for the community and the partnership.
That's amazing. And so this is, as you suspected, it wasn't just, hey, let's replace the livestock that was lost in the drought.
Yeah.
You're thinking about ways in which we can have an ongoing, sustainable source of water. And tell us, I can just imagine, but tell us what that means for some of these communities. What kind of a difference does that make?
I knew a little bit in the beginning, and that's why I sort of changed the course of our project to be a water well. But I think when I was on the ground on that first project, and a drill takes a long time because we do deep boreholes that supply a lot of water to communities for a long time. And there was this little girl following me around on the drill site. Her name was Joy, and we got to be buddies. And when the water first started coming out of the well, and it shoots up really high when you hit an aquifer, and she was saying maji maji, which is water in Swahili. And I said, no, not yet, because I knew enough to know that you have to do the pump test before you can say that it's potable. So they ran the pump test, and they said, yeah, it's cool to drink. So we filled up a really big liter plastic bottle of water. And I swooped her up, and I was holding her, and she drank that whole bottle in what seemed like one big gulp. And I was holding her, and I could feel her relief and happiness and joy and looking around at the community. And I realized that was going to change the course of her life.
Wild. So how many people do you think you've served with all these wells?
My team is overseas right now, and we just surpassed over 250,000 people.
Have been affected by the work you're doing directly?
Yeah.
And you go over there still?
About every other month, I do, yeah.
And your daughter wasn't born when you started this, Sarah, was she?
She was not.
And so she's been a part of this all her life.
She plays a huge role, as a matter of fact, in our fundraising and my speaking engagements. And I was committed to this work before she was in my life. But when she was born, it became something I knew I would do forever, because I see and I know and I talk to these women in the field who are losing children because of waterborne illness all the time. And so when I had my daughter, and I would hold her at night and nurse her and realize that I did not have to worry about what I was giving her might hurt her, how powerful this work was. And so now she's a part of it.
That's cool. And so the impact you're having is also must be helping with waterborne diseases and with other things. So the disease rate in these communities is plummeting as well.
Yeah, almost to zero in some of our communities.
What about education or opportunities for girls, things like that?
Yeah, that's a huge result and impact that we have, and that some people don't realize. So especially once young girls hit puberty, if there is not water in the school and sanitation, they have to not be in school for a length of time, and then they eventually have to drop out because they fall behind. So we almost always put our water systems near a school or on school property, and the attendance of the girls in school skyrockets, and that will change the course of their life.
Oh, wild. They can stay in school.
Yeah, and then statistically too, then their income goes up 12% for every additional year they're in school. Birth rate goes down, domestic violence goes down. It's an incredible impact.
That's amazing. So, Sarah, what else is cooking? You've got some other plans, I suspect, just seeing what you've done already.
Yeah. Well, so when we started having the success rate that we have, other NGOs started reaching out for support and advice and guidance. So we decided for various reasons that we would just launch a different company. That company is called Well Beyond, and we consult for other NGOs doing similar work or international development work so that we can help them install their water project properly.
I have to ask you a personal question, which is, here you are, committed, dedicated, doing all this amazing work, helping over 250,000 people in Africa. But last time we checked, you sold your house and you sold your car, and now you have a kid. So do we need to worry about you? Are you doing okay? What's the deal?
And a single mama, too.
Yeah. So do you have a place to live and everything?
So for the first 5 years of her life, we did live with my parents, who are amazing people. They no longer think I'm nuts, or maybe they still do, but they've accepted the fact.
I think your daughter probably paved the way for them to come around.
Oh, yeah, she's changed everything. Yeah. But we do. We have a little apartment in Austin, and we're really happy.
Okay,
Thanks
cool.
for asking.
And so the name of the organization is Well Aware?
Yeah.
And what's the website?
It's wellawareworld.org.
Wellawareworld.org.
Yeah.
And if somebody goes to look at that, they can see pictures, they can see some of the activity you're doing, and
yeah, we have a pretty comprehensive website, so you can see all of our projects and our team and our model. There's also a link to Well Beyond, the consulting company. In that company, too, we're also launching an app where community members can troubleshoot issues they're having with their water system on their own. So you can learn about that, too.
I just want to caution all of those people out there who have their law degrees and they've been doing corporate finance, or they're becoming civil engineers, and they're thinking about ways to infuse more meaning in your life. There are lots of ways to do that. You don't have to do everything that Sarah's done, but I have to say your choices are pretty darn inspiring.
I appreciate that so much.
Congratulations.
I'm so honored to be here.
This week's winner of the Achievement Award, Sarah Evans. The organization is called Well Aware. You can find out about wellawareworld.org. Congratulations, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's such a huge honor. Thank you.
Hi, this is Nick Forster from eTown. If you want to stay up to date with all the performances, interviews, and behind-the-scenes footage, click the subscribe button. Thanks.